and good morning to everyone. Thank you to the Steward team for having this. It's so great to be back in person and having conferences like this, so really appreciate you guys putting this on. As Peggy said, I'm going to be speaking to you. My topic is about setting up a firm for today's challenges and answering those solutions, but also coming back to Peggy's session before, setting your firm up for the firm of the future. I won't go into too much of my introduction, as Peggy did that for me, so I appreciate that, Peggy. But I will say I bring a lot of experience from the outsourcing world. I've been doing this for over 15 years. I set up KPMG Canada's outsourcing, and now I'm just doing it for other firms. So that's my background. And I have to thank the person here for teeing this up. We're at a golf course, but saying that there's problems with staffing, a couple of you in the session before really teed this session up very well. So just, I guess, maybe this is a redundant question in today's day and age, but how many people, just show of hands really quickly, are experiencing staff deficiencies in their firms? Okay, I thought that would be the answer. I think a person at the back was asking at the first session about the Great Resignations. We're seeing lots of headlines about the Great Resignation. I will say in our profession, I believe it's not a blip. I believe this is something that's going to continue for many years and be a problem for us. The reason I say that, some of the headlines you're seeing on here, you're seeing university enrollment down for accounting students. You're seeing people leaving the profession at a younger age and going on and doing different things, as we've seen. A lot of people were talking about earlier in the session that they're seeing increased demand for their services. There's more regulations, there's more things happening, there's more mergers and acquisitions happening. So as CPAs, we're seeing that demand for our services, but we're seeing less people to do it. So this is a challenge that I don't think is a blip that we're seeing just because of the pandemic. I see this as an ongoing problem. Other people talked about things that we're seeing in the profession with increased compensation by the Big Four. I'm working with a firm in the UK that went to a 4-day work week just to retain people. So people are doing things to try to keep their people and attract people, but as a result of that, it's increasing their costs of delivering their service, obviously impacting their net profits at the end of the day. So lots of challenges facing the profession, but I really think that we have some solutions with the outsourcing. We'll get into that through this session. So how does outsourcing fit into your practice, you might ask? I think there's really 4 different places that you can see that it being effectively used by CPA firms. First being tax compliance. Be it T1s, be it T2s, if you're doing T4s, T5s, T5013s, all of those, I'll say moderate complexity or simple ones can easily be done on an outsourced environment. A lot of the professionals that are working in outsourcing arrangements have experience in Canadian tax, and they can come in and do that for your firm. Other areas that we're seeing, we talked about bookkeeping, I think in one of the earlier sessions as a new growth for the industry, and I think we're seeing that across North America. And sometimes you don't have the staff that really wants to do that bookkeeping. Outsourcing that and having people do that is a great way to increase your practice or grow your practice and take on that market as well. Assurance, be it your compliance work, be it your reviews or your audits, are also very aligned to an outsourcing function. And we have a lot of professionals that work in that. To be honest, the one in the middle is the hardest one, the review, but the compilations and the audits are very effective ways of incorporating outsourcing. And then finally, from an administration standpoint, be it billing, be it scheduling, just getting your normal letters out, be it rep letters, engagement letters, those things can be outsourced as well. So a couple of ideas for you as you're thinking about outsourcing where it might play in your practice. Another survey, so how many, I guess I'll ask it at the same time. I thought these were going to come in advanced through, but they're coming at the same time, so I'll ask the questions to all of you at the same time. How many of you are currently outsourcing in your firms? Okay, there's a few. And how many are contemplating or have been looking at it? Okay, excellent. And I think a lot of professionals or a lot of CPA firms, just due to the things that we were seeing in those headlines, are looking at this as an option currently. When you look at outsourcing, I would say there's two buckets of doing things and things to consider, or different models in doing things. And the first two kind of up here is your team extension and your centralized team. The team extension model is, I refer to them as kind of recruiters and landlords. So they'll find you a body, typically in a low-cost jurisdiction. The ones that are out there currently or commonly are India, South Africa, Philippines, and Eastern Europe. Europe is where they find their talent and where they have their people. So they'll go out, find that talent, give them a desk to work at, give them an internet connection to link into your systems to conduct the work. But after that, it's kind of in your hands, and you're treating those people very similar to your team in your office. And you'll have to supervise them, allocate them work, and things of that nature. The centralized team is a little bit different model where they'll have managers or senior managers overseeing the work. They'll take care of a lot of the administration of who's going to do what and when. You'll just give them the task and they'll take that over. A little bit more costly, but I think a lot of firms see the benefit of that, especially when you're working with people in a remote area and time differences, that they have people on the ground overseeing that and doing that. So that's kind of the one model that you have to make a decision on. The other model is how you're going to employ the people. There's temporary or contract work, and a lot of people are doing that. So during the busy season, obviously it's a little bit more expensive to do it in that way, but you get them for the period that you need. The other option is on a full-time basis and having them throughout the year. My personal view on this is I like the second option, the full-time view, because you can grow with that employee or that part of your team, and they can get continuity on your jobs and continue on with you. So those are your kind of the other options when you're looking at outsourcing. I won't go through just due to time, but I know that Shelby's going to be giving these slides to you after. But I'll highlight a couple of things on this slide just because I see that the lunch is coming out as well. But things that you can achieve when you do outsourcing and some of the benefits to your practice. First and foremost, obviously, is dealing with the staff deficiency issue. And an outsourcing group can provide you staff, and that's typically at the associate or senior associate level. It does create capacity for your managers and senior managers because they won't have to be supervising them as much as well. So I think that's an important thing to mention. I do want to talk about point D a little bit more because I know there's a lot of talk about software and technology. And I know from working at firms that often firms invest in technology. And I often call it shelfware. So you invest in software, but it sits on the shelf because your people aren't comfortable in using it. If you use outsourcers to use that technology that specialize in that, they can do that for all your engagements, and everyone just takes it to them. They execute it on it and give the product back to your team. So I think it's an effective use of outsourcing and a good way to really recognize the benefits of your investments in technology. I will say the other part is setting your practice up, the last bullet there, for profitable growth. A lot of people were saying that they're turning away work, or there's some people saying that they're turning away work now because they just don't have the people to do it. This is a way to really take on that work, have the capacity to do that in an economical way as well, which we'll talk to in a slide in a minute here, which is this slide here. So the financial benefit of outsourcing. So the real benefit of, or the typical benefit is around 30% reduction in cost to Canadian costs. That's actually going up a little bit as we're seeing the costs move up here in Canada as well recently. But I would say in general, it's around that 30% advantage. The reason that is, as I said before, outsourcers are typically located in low-cost jurisdictions, be it India, Philippines, Eastern Europe, and South Africa. There's also additional savings on top of that, just the raw cost of the employee. The recruiting costs are reduced because they're taking care of that for you typically. In time, if you move some of your real estate, you can save on those costs and IT. Typically, the computers are supplied by the outsourcer, so you're not investing in that as well. So some real cost savings for sure. I just, again, I was expecting these to come advanced in that way, but if we look at this slide, I know that a lot of us hear these comments from our clients on an annual basis. The first client is that our activities during our engagements are disruptive to their day-to-day operations. We hear that they have to retrain our junior staff every year. And then we have to find a way to keep our professional fees down. I think all of these questions are addressed by an outsourcing solution. If we look at the disruptive to the day-to-day activities during an engagement, by taking that away and doing it with a centralized team, the amount of back and forth and I'll say elementary questions that are asked of our clients is reduced. If we look at sorry, that's the training, but on the disruption to the daily activities, by working remotely, we're not in there, and I know in today's day after COVID, a lot of our engagements, even locally, aren't in their premises, but by doing this offshore, we're not in asking those questions of them all the time. We're compiling those informations and coming back in set meetings and asking those questions in an outsourcing environment, which is a different experience for our clients. And obviously, when they're saying that we have to look at fees, by doing an outsourcing arrangement, but back to our last slide, we're doing it in a cost-effective way. And some of those savings, I don't want to say all those savings are passed on, but we can say that we're looking at that and protecting them in that way. I think a lot of the challenges, or the perceived challenges, when I talk to accountants, when we look at outsourcing, are these three things. First is, how do we develop our future leaders? And my response to that is through training, and they're still going to get experience. We're not ripping away all of the procedures that we're doing. And if we look at, I'll take audit because that's my background, I don't think our professional staffs have to do a bank reconciliation or a cash section 100 or 150 times. After 20 times, they get it. And so as long as we give them experience and take a lot of that away from them, the other 80, we can still do this effectively and still develop our future leaders of your firm. I think also the capacity of the time that's created through outsource gives you more time to train your staff, to mentor your staff, and make them the future leader. If we look at should we be discussing this with clients? Some firms are of the view that they want to hide behind this and not really, because in today's way of doing engagements with things being sent electronically, they don't have to say that they're doing outsourcing. But I would encourage, if you do go down this path, to discuss this with your clients. I think it does show you that you're a firm of the future, that you're looking out for their interests. Going back to the last slide, you're trying to reduce their costs, and be proud of the fact that you're doing this. It would be my experience, and I think what is best practice. And finally, this IT security on this slide. What I think a lot of people don't realize, and maybe they're more aware of it after the pandemic, but what happens in an outsourced environment typically is the outsourced professionals are going into your IT system, just like you would from working from home. So all of the IT security is still managed and contained by your IT department. So you're not really exposing yourself as much as some people think from an IT perspective. If you do go down the path, and again, I won't go through all these points in detail, this will be provided to you after, but if you do decide to take on outsourcing, I have some bullets here from my experience of what I think is required for a successful launch. And my first advice is, when you do pick a partner, ensure that they have CPA experience. There's a lot of outsourcers that can get bodies and get people that with an accounting background, but if they don't understand the CPA business and they don't have a background in CPA business, I find that they sometimes struggle in implementing an outsourced solution. So look for that in the partner that you choose. Get your IT department in, even though it's not, as I said on the last slide, it's not overly complex. Get them involved early, get all their questions answered, and also have your legal counsel involved at looking at the contracts and making sure things like insurance and things like that are taken care of for you before you embark on it. Get an office champion, get an executive sponsor involved to create the excitement and get people accountable to doing things in a different way. Change management is hard, and you need some of your leaders spurring them on at your practice, I think is a really important part of it. Don't jump in just at busy season. Do exposure engagements before, get people involved with the process, understand the process. You don't want to be doing this during busy season. Get them comfortable with it before. And then I'll jump to the last slide. It's really important when you do start to outsource activities to adjust your local schedule. I think we all know if we give our staff time on a schedule, they take all that time up. So it's important if you want to see the benefit of this from a financial perspective, that if you are taking parts of an engagement away from your local team, to take that off the schedule so that they're only given a budget to do the work that's there. I see somebody laughing, so they might have experienced that from their outsourcing experience. Just to wrap this up, I would say there's a lot of innovative firms around the world that I've been lucky enough to work with, and I've heard stories from others that are embracing this as a new solution to address today's challenges, but also set themselves up for the future. I guess the question to the group here is now the time for your firm? With that, I'll open it up to questions. Yeah.
I think one of the points on there was to communicate. Are you telling clients that they're outsourcing? Because it used to be, it was really, really important, and there was a concern that the client would say, I'm not comfortable with that, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, great question, Peggy. And my recommendation and best practices is to be upfront with this and communicate with them and really highlight the advantages of doing this, be it cost, be it the turnaround of the engagement time, and really, I think everybody in today's day and age with the Great Resignation realizes there's a challenge with finding resources, and that your firm is in front of that and addressing that, I think, is an important discussion to have with your client and something to be proud of. It would be my recommendation. Yeah.
So what is your firm's role in that process?
Yeah, so what we do is we are a provider of outsourced services. So we get the talent. We do it on a centralized team basis is the way that we do that. So we're interacting with the client, and what we think is our major advantage is the process that we bring along with that, because of our years of experience with CPAs and working with them specifically in Canada. So our firm is helping accounting firms in Canada and around the world get resources with the right talent and then implement it into their systems.
Sean?
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Sean, I wonder if you could just speak to, I think you work with US CPA firms, Canadian and others. Who are the quicker adopters? Or have you noticed a difference?
So that's a great question, Paul, and to be honest, I hadn't really thought about that, but now that you raised that, Canadians are quick adopters. So they are innovative. Maybe I should say this a different way. US jump at this and do it quicker. I would say Canadians take longer to make the decision, but once they do it, they're quicker at accelerating through the process. But yes, I get Americans do jump faster and act quicker, which is, yes. Sorry,
Yeah, my question is around the outsourcing part of taxation impacts. For example, Canadian taxation can be totally different to what, in other parts of the world. So
yes.
If you outsource your taxation vertical to an, outsourced company in India,
right?
How do you feel that in terms of, do they know everything about Canadian taxation? Will they be on top of this, or how do you find that workforce somewhere another part of the world where they're not used to, working in that setup, which is local?
Yeah. No, excellent question. And I would say that's the difference with tax than audit. Audit, to some degree, is audit around the world. And for those that practice in that area, there's people that do international exchanges. With tax, it's a little bit harder to do international exchanges. And I think that'll go back to one of my slides, is ensuring that you're picking a partner that can bring you the right resources. So even though the taxation, what we do is we bring people with Canadian tax experience. So there is, in these different jurisdictions, people that have gained, be it through working with Big Four outsourcing firms or others that do have that skill set, and it's important that you get that so you're getting quality work out. But great question for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a quick question here. So we use outsourcing. We have a team in India
Okay.
that helps us with things like bookkeeping, audit engagements, and even corporate taxes. So one of our biggest concerns has to do with confidential client information.
Yep.
And I think that's one reason why we still do all our T1s in-house. just because there's a lot of personal information involved with that.
Yep.
So how do you deal with that type of issue from confidential information,
Yeah.
particularly when you're dealing with offshoots?
Yeah, no, for sure. Excellent question. That's a big question that a lot of people have as well. And the way that I would say that it's dealt with, and I'll take it even one step further, and I'll say that the corporate information is, you have to keep that confidential as well. So I think whatever they're working in, the information, the sensitivity of that information is very important. And I think similar to here, it's really the look at and question an outsourced partner on what they are doing from their employee when they're recruiting people and what the background checks are and things of that nature. I'd also say the training is critical on that, and what we encourage the people that we're working for do is have their training also enforce that the people that the outsourced people are doing that training as well and understand that. So if there's ethics training, if there's independence training, all those things need to be done. But from the data security perspective, I would say the way they're recruiting and the background checks they're doing, I would also say that there's a lot of which is slightly different than the environment that you'll see in our offices here in Canada, but there are IT things put in place to ensure that they can't download information on on their computers that they're working on. Printers aren't there. Back to the Columbia office, pictures, they're not printing things out. Often there's security it's a little bit strictly enforced, more strictly enforced than North American offices with badges and security access to information, or sorry, to rooms that they're working in. So just ask your provider what they're doing in that regard, and ensure you're comfortable there, because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with humans and confidential information, just like we are here. And I think the same risks really exist in Canada, and what we do to mitigate it in Canada is the interviewing and the background checks that we do here, and make sure your providers are doing that overseas as well. Other questions? Yep.
Sean, did you, I came a few minutes late to your session,
Mhm.
but did you address the fact that the information stays in Canada? And with respect to security as well, my experience in the past at these centers, they're very secure. The staff don't even bring in their cell phones. They can't do anything with the information. It's all on screen, and there's no way for them to take anything out of those premises. It's the nature of the structure.
That's correct. So we didn't talk about that, so thank you, Bruno, for raising that. So the IT environment, as I said, I briefly talked about this during the presentation, where the professionals that are working overseas are typically remoting into your IT system. So they're having access to your system to change the data on your IT systems, but they can't download that and take that offshore. That's for some legal reasons, but also for security reasons. So appreciate that. I will say, and you're right, Bruno, historically, there was a common in these outsourcing environments where people would enter the workspace, they kind of drop their backpacks or the briefcase, including their phones, and then they'd enter the work area and not have anything. That's becoming a little, I'll call it archaic, a way of doing it. I think in today's day and age, people realize no matter where you are, having access to your phone and people, family members or things to be able to get in contact with you. If your child's sick or something like that, they need to have that availability. So commonly, they are now bringing their cell phones into this, but there are options if you're super sensitive on concerned about the security of the data information, you can get that set up. But the challenge is recruiting people if you're doing that. But you are right on the terminals that they can't download and they can't do things of that nature typically. Yes?
Have the practice inspection police at CPA Ontario expressed any misgivings or concerns about those types of arrangements?
No, they haven't. They had questions originally, for sure. I think in today's environment, this has been going on for 15 plus years now. They're very, very comfortable with it. If you look to the US and the PCOB standards, there's looking at how much work, similar to kind of having another auditor involved in the process. They do look at that. They haven't put specific requirements on that, but those are more for public audits. There was scrutiny for sure, and that they're looking at how things are doing, but I would say it's no different than the scrutiny that they put on us here in Ontario or Canada.